This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
It's happening.
It's in the air.
The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me.
It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
NewRealityTV.com.
Entering our 8th year as a show that promotes and investigates all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, this is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment. I am your host, Carl Gruber, and welcome, friends. We appreciate you stopping by to meet yet another enlightening and fascinating guest on today's show. So today we meet Cecilie Stabell, a woman from beautiful Norway and residing in other parts of Europe. She has a stunning array of certifications and expertise in the metaphysical and spiritual realm, including color and sound healing, Reiki energy master, soul life intuitive, hypnotherapist, shaman practitioner, nutrition counselor, and many, many more. Now, she is also author of the book Ut Kraften Din, which is currently available only in Norway, and we're going to hopefully find out more about that. And she is here to tell us about overcoming sickness in her early adulthood and finally healing herself and finding her path and purpose in life. So with that, welcome, Cecilie.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, I'm excited. And, God bless technology. You're sitting in beautiful Switzerland right now, and I'm in exciting Ohio in the U.S. But this is how it works these days. We should be used to it. And I'm going to apologize to you and my viewers and listeners. My voice is a little bit rough today, so forgive me if it sounds a little tough and I clear my throat a lot. But let's check in with you, Cecilie. I was reading up on you. It sounds like you had a pretty nice upbringing as a youngster in a loving household, but somehow you got sick with heavy metal poisoning. What happened?
That's the question everyone's still asking themselves, the doctors, me, myself. And I don't think I'll actually ever fully know, because the interesting thing is that often when people talk about heavy metals, they talk about mercury or they talk about aluminium. Like mercury might come from fish, but I had a lot of different ones that were pretty high. And I don't have genes that are that bad, like detox genes that should have gotten this bad, but for some reason it did. I had mononucleosis before that, which meant my immune system was a little down. I went to a boarding school in New York where there was mold in the rooms. I think there was just like all of these factors that played into it. And I've kind of just released myself from dwelling about why it happened, and in a more metaphysical, spiritual perspective, it's the exact initiation that I needed in order to get to where I am today. So I don't actually know. I feel like I've now covered most of the bases of like where it might come from, and really spent a lot of time cleaning up my life, like, what kind of makeup I use, what kind of household products I use, the way that I eat, and all of that. But even as a child, I was the kid that, we was bringing a salad that was organic to school while everyone else was eating kind of whatever. So it's a little bit, I actually don't know.
Well, how did you finally pinpoint that it was heavy metal poisoning? And what I read, it was most of your early adulthood that you suffered with it.
Yeah, it took actually about 4 years before I figured out that that's what the issue was. So we were kind of, I was getting different diagnoses and we were trying different things, and then nothing was really changing anything. It was like, maybe it is like incremental change that like it wasn't really doing anything. And then I went to a functional medicine clinic where we took all kind of scans. Like they were scanning my brain, we were taking genetic tests, we were scanning hormones and bowels and like everything at once. And that's when we found it. And that then led into about a 4-year detoxification program, which was so much more than just, a juice cleanse. It's yeah, detoxing from heavy metals. It's one of, I don't wish it upon anyone. It was a lengthy process that really, it's challenging physically, like mentally, and it's because heavy metals can reabsorb in different organs and in the brain when it gets released. So it has to be like a very slow process. And I used something called, like now everyone knows what RNA is, but at that time, this was before COVID and the vaccine. So everyone thought this was like super experimental and like, what are you doing? Like, I don't think that's a good idea. And I was just clinging to this one thing that seemed to be something that could help, that I had seen a lot of, other people that had really helped with autism and things that can really stem from heavy metal poisoning. So I started on that. And yeah, about 3.5 years later, I felt like I was finally kind of back on track, but it was definitely a long and challenging journey. So this was about between 18 and 26.
Wow, what a journey. Just one last question about that. What were the symptoms of heavy metal poisoning? I'm sure a lot of people out there in the world watching this are going, oh, maybe that's what I have.
Yeah. I think heavy metals it's kind of like silent until it's not. Like our bodies can withstand a certain level of toxicity until it's just kind of too much for the body. And then you start really experiencing symptoms. So heavy metals are toxic to the brain. So it can start to actually break down brain regions. About 6, 7 years ago, I could barely read. I felt like I had ADHD. I was getting panic attacks, but I was also super tired. I wasn't really absorbing nutrients because it also really destroys the gut. So I was super thin. It looked like I had, like I was anorexic. I was very, very underweight. And then that also, when you're not able to absorb nutrients, comes with its own challenges. So, really, really, really tired, a lot of pain in the body, a lot of fatigue, a lot of brain fog, and just confusion and depression. So, kind of an array of symptoms. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds like a hangover.
I'd say it's a lot worse than that. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. A couple weeks ago, had this guy who lives in Hawaii, and he's actually an older gentleman. He looks like Gandalf the Grey from from Lord of the Rings, but he's called the Wizard of Wellness, and he's a practitioner, a doctor of all these naturopathic things. And he said when he was a youngster, he had mercury poisoning because older folks who they use mercury in tooth fillings. So
Yeah.
so that's it.
That,
You can find it that way.
yeah. And it's actually something that my mom had that, and the best way to detoxify is actually to get a child. And I'm the firstborn. So the firstborn usually gets most of the shit that's coming
Oh,
from the
great.
mom. So yeah. So I probably got some of that from her, but she's not sick. So not everything would have come from there. Like there is something that was going on with me and my body. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you finally got healed, and then you went on a mission to live your life purpose, and you got numerous certifications in many metaphysical and spiritual modalities. What was your driving force to study and master all these areas?
I came out on the other side of this, long sickness for when I was about 26. And I just realized that I probably had a lot of patterns that I wasn't really aware of, that I had picked up, because I actually never really called myself sick, even though I was sick. I was just like, I'm on a mission to get better. I would try to like rephrase it in other ways, even though I didn't really know a lot about the subconscious mind. But my mom is a coach, and I'm sure I'm picked up on quite a lot of things. I've always been into self-development and meditation for a long time. So, but I came out on the other side, and I still realized that there were probably like part of me that had attached some part of myself to that identity, and that if I wanted to do something different, I really needed to become a different person. So I started to go really deep into Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and into how we really need to change. If we want to become a different person, we actually need to change the structure of who we are. And that really starts in our brain and in the nervous system and in the subconscious mind. So I dove really deep into that work and actually ended up going to a week-long meditation retreat. And during that retreat, I had an awakening experience. I had what in the moment just felt like I can only describe as coming to God. I didn't, not in a religious sense, but in the sense of just like, this was a power that was just so much greater than me. I felt more love than I had felt my entire life. And it came from within me. It was not dependent on anything without. It felt like I was plugged into an electric socket and my entire body was just full of vibration. And I just remembered, it was like, this is who I truly am. This is what I'm really here to do. And after that moment, I kept tapping into the same feeling and the same thing again and again and again. I thought it was just going to be like this once in a lifetime moment. But I just kept surrendering in my meditations and kept coming back to the same place. And after that, it was so clear to me that this was not an exclusive that I had with the creator or with the greater force. Like, this is something that's available to all of us. And it was just undeniable for me. I just needed to start finding tools in order to help other people tap into the same force. That was just the most powerful thing I had ever felt in that moment. So I just started to then follow the breadcrumbs, as it goes, like, okay, what am I interested in? Like reading books and then discovering mentors and traveling. And as life goes, one thing just kind of led to the other, especially in this segment. I think when you trust the path and you have a clear intention of what you want to do, then the right people tend to weave themselves into your path.
It's interesting. I had mentioned to you prior to recording the show that I have a friend who lived in Oslo, Norway, the country you're from, for a long time. And we've talked about, she's been on my show, Isabel Stahl, she's been on my show a number of times. And she says that Scandinavians in general are not very much into new thought or metaphysical and spiritual things, and that, you can't even talk about death. People are like that, and so it's interesting that you must have been in an environment that really promoted that, and how cool.
Yeah, I think in a way I kind of created that environment for myself. I don't have, like, a lot of my old friends, they're not into this at all. Like, I think she's right in what she's saying. Like, the fact that Norway and the Scandinavian countries, like, I think it's interesting, like, the further north you come, like in the world in general, I think we get more and more entrained to use our heads. And the further south is like they're in their heart, and it's like, beautiful and it's chaotic, and it's like, so it has its pros and cons. But Norway is very much a society that's driven from the mind. But my mom is a coach. I started my first private lessons in transcendental meditations when I was around 14. My aunt's very spiritual, so I kind of have people around me that are my aunt is very spiritual. But my mom and dad, they're not as spiritual as I am. And I didn't really have any other friends, but it was just, I think once you come in contact with something that just is that big, it's just undeniable. And even if I was the only one in my kind of field I was interested in that, the beauty of today is that we can go in and we can listen to podcasts like this. We can read books. We can expand our minds in ways that we can't necessarily do with the people around us, but we can still seek information. And then I started traveling a lot. Like, the meditation retreat I was at was actually in San Diego. And I travel probably about 50% now to experience, different cultures. And like you mentioned, your friend being in Costa Rica as well. I've also spent quite a lot of time in South America and learning from them there. So it's, it's beautiful.
Wow, I would like to go back to this Kundalini awakening. Sounds like Kundalini awakening is like any more generic term for just connecting to all that is. And when it happened to you, was it like a blinding flash of light? Did it just come over you like a warm blanket that you felt all of this love?
No, it was a little brutal, I think. If you had seen me, you would probably have called an ambulance. It looked like I was having an epileptic seizure. Yeah, we were meditating. It was a big ballroom, probably around 2,000 people, and it was the first day. And I didn't know anyone who had been to any of these events. I didn't know anyone who was there, and I just had this clear pull that I needed to be there. So I had 9-hour jet lag, traveled really far from Norway in order to be there. And then we sat down the first day in the first meditation, and I just felt like I got hit by lightning. And I had felt similar like experiences before in somatic work where, an arm will just kind of flinch or something like that. But this was just 20 times that. It was just like a wave of energy that was just coming over me. And I just knew that I just had to write it out. It was just like, you just go into it. I wasn't scared in any way. It just felt right. It just felt like connection, but it probably looked pretty brutal. And I remember at the time I was like, why is no one checking up on me? Like, it feels like, why is no one like asking if I'm okay? But they were so used to seeing this because what I didn't know was that 2 days later, he would put people up on stage and like show people that have been doing this work for a long time. And that looked very similar to what I was experiencing in the moment. But I just didn't know that before I came. So they were like, she's good. She's in it. She's probably done this before. And I was like, I don't even know what's happening. So
Wow, what an experience. Yeah. And just not to dwell a whole lot on it, but meditation, I'm a spiritual seeker student. Just, 30 seconds to 5 minutes is good for me. And it's just my quiet time with Source. And sometimes it can be dramatic. Sometimes it's just worth it just to connect,
yeah, absolutely. I think we've kind of in this world, so many people have lost like the cultivation with our inner space. Everything is so focused on the external and what's going on around us, and just having this time to turn back in, to turn back into also connecting to the world that we can't necessarily see with our eyes. Like we see less than 0.001% of reality. But when we slow down our brainwaves into an alpha or theta brainwave state, we can start to see frequency as information, and we can start to work with that in a different way. And we can actually tap into a different part of the reality that is currently here that we just don't see with our eyes, but is still very real and very much felt. So I think having that experience where we can just also, a lot of people, I think the worst thing in the world they could ever imagine is to sit in stillness with themselves for a long time, because that in a way it has become a prison for them. They're always like looking for things outside of them to distract them from the uncomfortable feelings of being them, which is like it is really uncomfortable to be human. Sometimes we go through a lot of initiations and hard and challenging things, but when we can learn to instead sit with that and return to that, I think it also cultivates a different sense of calm, of peace within ourselves, where we're not so afraid of what's going in inside, and we actually learn to meet that. And when we have that inner trust and inner cultivation where it's like, oh, nothing in here can hurt me, then I think we show up in the world also in a completely different way.
Well, boy, I say that to myself sometimes, man. Why did I choose to be a human? This is a very weird journey. Isn't there an easier way? If I'm living multiple lives, why didn't last time did I just not stay there with Source? But that's why we're trying to figure this out. But
Yeah.
back to your this awakening moment of yours, was that your biggest breakthrough toward living the life you now live?
It was one of them. It was definitely like the first that was just it was showing me that there was so much more. Like up until this point, I had been meditating. I was like trying to get back into my meditation practice. And when I did, I just felt this deep depression, this depth and this, sorrow. And like I was like, why am I sitting here feeling this shit? I can just go for a workout. I can just go get some sunshine. Like I know how to like hack my brain in order to start feeling more feel good chemicals. And then part of me also recognized and understood that, but if you keep doing that, you'll be running from yourself your entire life. So going from that to this moment of just like, whoa, I haven't even felt this much love my entire life through kind of a very similar experience was a big breakthrough for me. And then there's been many breakthroughs on the way. I think all kind of different teachers that I've studied with, they have, we can learn from them the material that we learn, but there's so much learning in just their transmission and the codes and in who they are and being able to study with them. And we were talking a little bit about plant medicine before we got into recording as well. And ayahuasca has also been one of my greatest teachers the last few years. And that's definitely been several initiations into the work that I do. Like you mentioned before, I have a lot of certifications. I've been studying at a mystic school in the US, and I have trained with different people. And yet, some of the most powerful work that I do is not taught by me, by masters that are human, but by masters on the other side. And the first time that kind of happened to me, and it was almost as if I was a marionette for something else. My hands was moving in these very specific patterns, and I was observing myself, and I was just thinking, this is very interesting because I clearly know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm not the one doing it. So it was like equally interesting and terrifying at the same time. And just kind of being able to learn from this intelligence that's now become a trusted ally that I get to weave with. And been downloading these patterns that I work with. So now when I work with healing work, when I work with in my ceremonies, I facilitate big sound healing ceremonies where I combine singing and going around and doing healing work. This is the work that I do. So it's a telepathic process with the bodies in the room, and being able to people often ask me, like, how did you know that I like my shoulder had an issue? And I didn't know that. What I see is distortions in the field, distortions in the light codes that are not, in coherence in the way that they're supposed to be. And then I just go in and correct that code, and that will go in and correct the body. So that's been also a really big breakthrough for me to be able to access that intelligence that I seem to have trained with for a long time before I got access to this in this life, because it's so cultivated. It would have taken me a really long time to learn this now. Yeah.
Yeah, there is just so much beyond our 3D realm that the vast majority of people in the world just refuse to acknowledge. I see what I see, I feel what I feel. And many times, like you said, when we're doing what we were sent here to do, it is like source is guiding and directing us. That's how I do a lot of writing, and I'll write and I'll sit down and it's done, and I look at it and I go, I wrote that? What?
That's the best.
I actually allow myself to be a vehicle for source to work through. And
100%.
And I just love it. I really enjoy doing that.
And I think we all can do that. Like, it's, I understand the people that are coming from the perspective of like, but what I see is the only truth I know. I used to be like that before I was presented with something else. And I think once you've experienced it yourself, it just becomes so undeniable. Like, that I don't really care about convincing people anymore. I'm like, the people that believe, they believe. And the people that don't, they're missing out. Too bad for them. Like, it's, yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that with you and I. Obviously, we both have friends that are not into what we are in. I'm not going to go try to convince them. I just love them for who they are, and I go out and go to a ball game with them or something, but I'm not there. Hey, let's talk about Kundalini awakenings,
Yeah.
As long as my voice is holding out here, I want to say this. I love a quote that I saw from you where you said, I knew deep down that this love I had been in contact with was not exclusive to me, but something we are all able to tap into. We just need to remember. Care to say any more about that?
I think love is the strongest force in the universe. It brings us all together. It brings us to life. And most people forget that that is something that we have inside of us, that is cultivated and part of the structure of who we are, and go to seek for that outside of themselves in, different people and different experiences, always trying to grasp for something that is already here. And when we can come into a place within ourselves where we're like, I am the love I'm looking for, then every experience and other people that comes into our life gets to be an enrichment of that, not something that we need in order to feel happy. And I think that just makes for a very, very different life when we can come from realizing the power of this. Like, I think love is one of the few things in the universe that can bend the laws of reality. It's very, very strong, and we know that. And then we still don't spend too much time really thinking about it. It's just part of something we feel from time to time. And I think this is one of the few things when we're talking about the tangible and intangible that is kind of intangible, but that everyone has felt. Everyone has a relationship with love. Like, they've felt it for some kind of person, for some kind of pet, for some kind of experience at some point in their life. Like, can we see that love? No, we can't see that love, but it's very real and it's very felt. And I think that is probably the closest kind of relationship that a lot of people will have to this experience of a greater intelligence. And I think this is something that lives within every single one of us in the spiritual world and the metaphysical world. Sometimes these concept gets very esoteric, which can be fun to talk about. But I have people in my life that wouldn't necessarily be considered spiritual that are some of the most connected people I know. They're connected to themselves. They're connected to the people in their life. They're connected to nature. And they live their life in integrity with their truth, with what they're really here to do. And they don't have these fancy words to explain it, but they're really anchored and grounded in that. And they're walking as this beautiful version of themselves that's fully integrated in this life.
Wow, that's a beautiful observation. Yeah, and basically allowing somebody to be who they are and not interfering. So, but beautiful. But we have got to turn to what you do with sound healing. What kind of sound healing is it that you do, and how does sound heal? And you even state that sound therapy can create psychedelic-like experiences. I want to hear about that.
Absolutely. I see that every time almost. I think every time at this point I have an experience or have a ceremony, people are experiencing things that they often have only, or what they're telling me is that I've only experienced this with ayahuasca. I've only experienced this with other kinds of psychedelics. So sound is an incredible healer, and it's something that we've used in the East for centuries, and that have just kind of gotten lost in the West. And again, like if I can't see it, it's not there. Like, and we have come back to, I think now we're starting to develop devices that's actually using sound in order to, destroy cancer cells. And it's really, really interesting. I think in a way, this is the ancient medicine and it's also the medicine of the future, coming back to this notion that frequency can really heal. Because there was a time in medicine where it's like, should we go down the chemical route or should we go down the like electrical route? And frequency is in sense electricity. And that is also sound. Whenever there is frequency and wavelength, there will always be sound, because every single thing in your body is always vibrating. Like every single cell in the universe has a vibration, right? There's a nucleus, and around that nucleus, there's electrons spinning at all time. That creates a wavelength and a frequency. And that means there will always be sound. So every single atom in the universe is always emanating a unique sound, like a hum. That's just a unique resonance to that. But similar to how a dog cannot hear, or we can't hear all the noises that dogs can hear, we cannot hear these sounds because it's beyond the human perception of what we can actually hear. But it's still there and we feel it. So when I walk into a room, I can feel that there's a resonance there. I can feel maybe that, shit, someone's had an argument here before anyone said anything, but I can feel it as soon as I walk into the room. It's just like a sticky energy. Or the opposite, I can feel very welcome in a room before anyone said hi or welcomed me. It's just like, there's a good vibe in here. And what we're actually picking up on are these huge electromagnetic fields and these resonances and sound that's being transmuted at all times between every single one of us. So the beauty of sound is that we can go in and we can change these electromagnetic field, what we often refer to as our aura, right? The electromagnetic field outside of our body with sound, because sound has the capacity to change the biology in the body and to do a lot of really, really beautiful things. We actually have small sensors on every single one of our cells called primary cilia that picks up on sound. So sound is really powerful. And when we use that, like the way that I use it in ceremonies, I sing, it's an intuitive process where I work with the energy in the field, like the people that are there, the divine and me. It's a co-creation. So nothing is ever fully planned. It's an intuitive singing that's going on, that I like to say is channeled for the processes that's going on. And then there is these soundscapes in the background that is targeted. I've worked with a very talented producer from Germany who's been geeking out on sound design for about 20 years and loves to like understand how to use frequencies to create portals and to optimize the different organs in the body, because we can actually use really, really strong amplifiers in order to look at the different organs in the body and what kind of frequency they're emanating from when they're healthy. And when they're not healthy, they will be emanating a different frequency. So we have our physical body, but we also have the energetic body that's beyond this physical body. And when the physical body is out of like it's not healthy, we will often see distortions in the energetic field. So in the East, they actually say that all kind of sickness starts in the mind. That creates then a field that gets, transmuted into the body as a sickness. So they think that every kind of sickness starts with a thought pattern. Like if you have cancer, maybe you don't feel worthy. Like maybe that's what's going on. If you're having an issue with your heart, maybe you're not able to receive love. Like and that's the way they view it. So we will often then also see distortions in the field. But the beauty of sound compared to a lot of other healing technologies is that we can actually go in and we can use this frequency to go in and overlay and create a resonance with your body. It's similar to when you pull one guitar string and the guitar string next to it starts to vibrate as well a little bit. So that's what we're doing when I'm singing and when I'm using these frequencies. I'm guiding your body into a similar resonance. So you will start resonating at a similar resonance to that. And when that happens, we go in and change the energetic field that is then imprinting the information that is becoming what's true in our physical bodies. So we don't have to actually, people can go in and they can access really deep trauma that's been stored in their bodies that they haven't even been able to access through talk therapy, that they haven't been able to, maybe it's so suppressed or it's so long ago because it felt so terrible and it's something they don't want to see. We can go in and we can change the pattern that's been laying there for maybe 20, 30 years in their life and creating chronic gut issues, chronic hormonal issues, just chronic feeling of depression, of not being connected to yourself. And then they don't even have to know what trauma happened. They don't have to re-experience that through the process. They just have to allow themselves to feel the feeling that's going to come up in their body when that work is happening. Sometimes that can be completely being super cold or being very warm or feeling like they want to shake, which is very normal when the nervous system is recalibrating itself, or they want to cry or they want to laugh. So we don't actually need to understand what's going on, but we need to allow ourselves to process in the body. And once we do that, that is the release. So I have people now, every time that are having these experiences where they're just feeling, I'd say it's a similar experience to the experience I just explained to you the first time that I felt like I was connected to source. Like there's something so much greater because we're doing this deep work that can be used for the subconscious, that can be used for trauma work, but it's also this plug-in to I channel from a very specific place. And that is the codes that I'm bringing into the field for the people that are a part of that ceremony. So I weave in some hypnotic techniques in order to, with the sound waves that I'm using, bring them into a theta brainwave state, which is where the brainwaves are so slow that, like I mentioned previously, we start experiencing sound as pictures in our mind. And I don't actually have to talk to them anymore because I can sing and I can use frequency and brainwaves that will then give them access to an internal story that will be then very different for each single person, but they can have their targeted experience instead of me guiding them through a journey of talking that might be different for what they need that day. And then I walk around the room and I do energy hands-on work with Reiki, with Kundalini, and with this kind of other healing technique that I talked about previously. So yeah, people definitely have experiences that are deep and profound and healing. We've been starting to see a lot more physical healings as well, which is really interesting. It was never something I really anticipated when I started this work. It was solely just for my own interest when I started, and then it's just it amazes me every single time the experiences that people have.
Yeah. I've seen on your website and maybe it was YouTube, some of your sound healing ceremonies are just amazing experiences from what I can see. But I just, for a moment, and by the way, a great explanation. Thank you. What a beautiful thing you're doing. I could tell the passion emanating from you as you were talking about it. That things, sicknesses start, with our thoughts in our mind. I mean, of course, in Miracles, one of the key lines is that all thought creates form on some level. And so myself, I'm just coming off a rare time in my life of having a, quote, cold, which is why my voice is shot. And I went back, and when it started, I thought, I was looking at where I was mentally, and I realized that when it started to kick in, I really was out of alignment with my thinking and my actions and my thoughts. And so I'd rather do sound healing than take some pharmaceutical, which usually has brutal side effects anyway.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think, the mind is what filters our entire reality. Like it's what we focus on, what is available. You and I we can be living the exact same life, like similar, we can go to the same movie and you can think it's amazing and I can think it's shit. And it's not about the movie, it's about our perception of it. And that goes for life as well, right? So when we can turn on a little bit of a different lens for what we're actually working with and what we're looking through, then life gets to transform itself every time we do that, even though nothing changes in our external circumstances. But when we change, everything in our life change.
Well, you mentioned that when you do your sound healing workshops and concerts, that nothing is planned. I'm just throwing this out here. Are you able to or willing to do a little bit of demonstration of your singing and sound healing? I don't know if you're prepared, or I just thought I'd throw that out.
I would love to, but the frequencies are so high that these kind of microphones doesn't pick up on it usually. So what I'd rather do, I can send you a little clip that you can plug in to the episode if you want to.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. And you can get the full, because it's a lot of, I have all these mixing boards and there's a lot of kind of like sound tech going on so they can get the full experience. Yeah.
There's just so much beautiful information to the sound healing. We are talking to Cecilie Stabell, our friend originally from Norway. We've got lots of questions here. I appreciate everybody joining us here on the 201st episode. Cecilie, I'd like to hear what your idea of spirituality is. I think many people have a convoluted opinion on spirituality and many times mistakenly connect it with organized religion.
Ah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about spirituality in general. I think it's that there is some kind of sect, that it's very structured, that it's all about this like love and light, and that it's, about this just like ascending to another place and not being here. And spirituality is just another segment and part of who we are. And I think the more we can integrate that into our daily life and not have it be somewhere that we have to escape to in order to escape out of our life, but have it be something that is like, I have chosen to come here as a human being in this life. I'm here to bring the divine to earth, not to escape onto some pink cloud in the sky. Like, yes, there can be moments for connecting with higher consciousness and learning from higher consciousness, but then I'm here to come back and bring that to life to the other people that are here, not to live somewhere else. And I think that is something I see a lot in the spiritual community. It's a lot of just like always being in flow and being in the moment and being in whatever happens, and then understanding that that's beautiful. And we can go in and we can use that information as momentum and bring it into life in a different way. So I think there's this idea that there has to be wrong or right or all these rules around it. And I think spirituality in essence is it's authenticity. It's allowing ourselves to come back to the truth and the deep remembrance of who we truly are. The us that is maybe beyond what we can see. We were talking about love previously, like, right? Everyone's felt that. It's something that's in a way beyond ourselves, but it's also just part of who we are. And the more we can come back to that and understand and register the fact that there are so much more beauty to this world that cannot necessarily be touched or seen or fully yet comprehended, but is still true, and we allow that experience into our life as well, I think life becomes infinitely richer.
Oh, great explanation. It's interesting, the people in my life that I know that are simply, I'll talk about this, and they're lying, oh, that's all woo. It's just woo-woo stuff. And I just, okay, you can't go beyond. I mean, they're not ready to open up and understand it, and that's where they're at. You talk a lot about the science of miracles, which is a big, beautiful thought in my life, that there's no order of difficulty in miracles. You talk about quantum manifestation. You use the term quantum leap quite a bit. Can you explain this?
Yeah, so I think it's actually interesting what you said as well. Like people aren't really ready for this, but it's already here. It's like we just don't see it, and that's where the quantum comes in. So, the quantum field is like this idea that there is multiple versions of our life that's playing itself out at the exact same time, and that we have this entanglement to different experiences and to different things in our life. So, say that I have met a person or I talked to a person on the other side of the world, maybe, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this before they think of them, and then suddenly they call, and it's like, oh, that's so random. And through the quantum field, we know that that's actually not random. Like this is entanglement. You have already woven part of your energies together, and when that happens, they might feel it when you are thinking of them, and they'll be, I really need to call her. Like it's been such a long time since we spoke together, and there will be these different serendipities that start coming up in our life. So quantum, what that is really working on is the energetic and frequency level, right? So that's all about, in a way, embodying and becoming the version we want before it might happen in the 3D. Because a lot of people, they're waiting for evidence in their life to believe something. Because if it's not there physically, then it means it's not there. So they're waiting to believe something until it's already happened. Whereas in the quantum field, it's kind of opposite. It's like you really need to believe it in order to see it. So if you start believing it, you will also, comes back to the quantum, but it's also really working with the subconscious, because we're talking about when we want to manifest, we don't manifest from our vision. We manifest from what's going on in our subconscious mind. So I might have a vision that, I want to double my business this year. But if in my subconscious, I believe that I'm not really worthy of that, and but that's also going to 5x my stress, then that is the frequency that I'm emanating. I'm not emanating the fact that, like, bring it on, all the beautiful clients and opportunities. It's like, no, I'm not kind of ready for that. So I might be taking all the action, but the thing that I'm actually matching with energetically is the people that might not really value me, might not really respect me, because that's the people that I feel is going to keep me at the level I'm at. So I'm not going to have to 5x my stress, or I keep feeling the fact that I'm unworthy, and then reinforcing this unworthiness wound. So in the quantum, we can go in and we can work with energy. So that starts with our energetic field is comprised of, the thoughts we believe, the actions we take, the emotions we feel, but also the limiting beliefs and the limiting emotions we have. So we need to then go in and do deeper work on, like, why am I not in resonance with what I really want to receive? And when we talk about more of the subconscious mind, we have something called the reticular activating system, which is the system that is kind of bridging the subconscious and the conscious. And that will then, if I decide to put on a lens similar to what we talked about before, of like, what is the lens I'm looking at reality with? This is what the reticular activating system kind of goes down into the subconscious and picks up, because our conscious mind can't comprehend everything that lives in the subconscious. That is just way too much information for us to have in our mind all the time. So if I then change who I believe to be, so instead of believing that I'm unworthy, I start to believing that I'm a worthy person and I can do this, then I'm going to also scan my environment completely differently, because I put on a different lens in my mind for what I'm starting to call in. So I'm starting to look for opportunities. I'm starting to see people that maybe were in my life before, but I just didn't see them in that way, and realizing that the opportunity is already there. And so I think there's multiple layers to this, but in essence, it all comes back to the fact that we're all entangled. And this goes all the way back to the Big Bang. Like before the Big Bang, everything was a little p, and then everything was entangled, right? And then it just exploded into this huge universe that is ever expanding that we're still living in. And everything is still entangled at an energetic level. And once we realize that everything that's happening in our life at some level is our own creation.
That word entanglement, boy, that is a big word. Quantum entanglement within quantum physics. Their research has definitively shown that you can have a particle light years away from the other particle, and they react simultaneously to each other, which explains why you can have somebody sitting in Switzerland and somebody in Ohio and say, think about each other, and all of a sudden the other one calls, they're entangled. And it is a real thing, because there's the unified field where everything is entangled and at one. It's called the unified field. The other thing you talked about is, you could say, I want to double my business this year, but you're saying, oh my God, that's going to be so stressful. That's such a classic example of how the universe responds with the law of attraction. You can say, I want this new house in Hawaii, but your heart is saying, oh my God, I'll never have that. The universe hears the call of your heart, the desire of your heart, not necessarily your words. So you have to get those two entangled so that they
100%. And that is the biggest work for a lot of people, because I think within almost every single human being, there is a feeling of unworthiness that is like, because how did I even deserve to have this beautiful human life? I just came here and I just got to experience all of this. Like, how am I even worthy of that? So at the bottom of almost every human being, there's this feeling of unworthiness. Even though we work hard and we do all the good things and we're good human beings, like if we really strip it down, there will be a different version of that for a lot of people. So allowing ourselves to receive and to want to do more in life, but also find that when that mission or what we want to call in is also entangled with like a bigger purpose, like something that we really feel like is on our heart to be here. It's not just like, it can be fun to be like, I want a new car, I want a new house, but that is more like just something that'd be nice to have. It's not something, I think once you've had a few of those things, you realize that that's not actually what makes life beautiful and enriching. Like it goes a little bit deeper than that if we really want to be fulfilled in this life. So yeah, it's a beautiful technology, and it's interesting that it's also something that is like people that aren't really into this, more conventional, doesn't really believe in, because in 1997, actually in Switzerland, where I'm at right now, there was an experiment that showed this very, very clearly with entanglement, where they took two particles and pulled them about 23 kilometers or about 14 miles apart. And they performed actions in one that was instantly mirrored by the other. And they used these clocks. I think, what is it called? It's like they don't even have a nanosecond of difference. And they just saw that everything they performed in one of them was instantly mirrored by the other. So that was a huge kind of like awakening moment for a lot of people in this world. And then here we are almost 30 years later, and this is still considered a little bit like, oh, we're not really sure what's going on here. For most kind of regular people, is this really true? And I'm like, this is so true. And the more we can start to weave with this technology and kind of understand how to use it, I think the faster we can expand and the more interesting and fun life gets to become.
Man, this is a really interesting conversation. I'm so glad we're talking about these things. We are talking to the amazing Cecilie Stabell. You have your own podcast. It's called Divinely Driven. Can you tell us how that came about and where people can find it?
Yes. It was just an urge to share more of this work in like a longer format. I had been on, Instagram for a little while, but it's something about the depth of a conversation in a different way, when you get to go in and you get to weave with explanations and with deeper knowledge. So they can find it on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts and a lot of other like podcast outlets, but I see that's where most people go into to listen. And it's really, we're talking a lot about what we talked about right now, collapsing time. How do we make our wildest dreams a reality in a way that might seem almost crazy to other people, but we do it in such a shorter amount of time by using these kinds of technologies. And I want to notion that action is also important. It's not like you're just going to go in and do this. Action reinforces the belief. Action is important for the energetics, and we are human beings that lives here. So sometimes I have people that, can you just heal me? Can you just do everything? And in technicality, it is possible to just change your field and to be a magnet for everything. I have seen it in my life several times, and it's really, really interesting when it happens. It's like the universe is like, hi. And you're just like, what? How did that come about? But I think also moving forward in the physical reality will make weaving with this work is the best combo.
That's great. Well, I will put a link to your show in the show notes so people can find it. You're also big on Instagram too, I see.
Yeah, I post quite a lot on Instagram. We have a beautiful community there. They can absolutely follow me there.
Well, I'd also like to find out about your book, if I pronounce it right, Bring Ut Kraften Din. And why is it only available in Norway, and what's it about?
So it's Bring Ut Kraften Din in Norwegian. It's like unleash your innate power. That's kind of almost direct translation, I would say, of it. And it's really this. I wrote this kind of before I had more of my spiritual awakening. I had been very deep into the like having so many issues with my brain and like not understanding. Like I used to be top of class, suddenly I could barely read. So it's kind of written. It's how to optimize your biological performance. I think a lot of people in the spiritual world they think everything is happening out there, and we're not going to be able to hold those high frequencies without the body really being strong and being intact. So in order to be able to receive these high frequencies, we need to also strengthen our body. So this is, I'd say, a performance manual. How do you build a body and brain that is really here to support you? Because I've been on that stage in my life where I had visions and I had dreams, but if I would have quantum leaped at that time, I would just have collapsed under those dreams because my body was in no stage where it could actually handle that. I was depressed, I was underweight, I was barely able to read. Like I wasn't ready to speak in front of hundreds of people on a stage. Like even though I might have wanted to, I needed to build that capacity first. And I see that for a lot of people that, you know, if we don't have our health, that becomes what consumes our entire life. But if we have that thing in place, it just becomes a vehicle for what can bring us forward to bring out our purpose and our meaning in life. So that's kind of the place that came from. People usually call it like a health Bible. It's very in depth. It also has very much like I'm kind of guiding you through everything in a way that's very easy to read and understand, but still really going deep. So the reason it's only in Norwegian was because when I wrote this, I wasn't sharing on Instagram in English. I was sharing in Norwegian, and which is kind of I didn't know that life would take the way it did. I have actually been in contact with a translator, and we started a process this fall. And then I just felt that my voice got so lost in the translation. Like the facts were there, but it didn't feel like me. So I actually pulled out of the project, and we'll see. I envision over time that there will be 2 more books in the same sequence, and that maybe as that work comes to life, there will be a translation as well into English of the first one.
Well, I can appreciate it. I've got a number of books myself out, and the publishing and writing process is quite extensive. So we are talking to Cecilie Stabell, who is a young woman wise beyond her years. So grateful to have her on the show. The work you are doing in this world is just one question. We're going to wind up here in a moment, but I would like to just give you this one last question here. The fear in the world right now seems to be growing stronger and showing its vicious face. What can you teach people and how to help them overcome fear and find more peace and joy? Any suggestions?
I think we always have a choice to choose. Like, do we choose to live our life from a place of fear, or do we choose to live it from a place of love? And that can be a hard choice sometimes. But I think every kind of person knows that when they're making a choice from fear instead of from love, it feels very, very, very different. And in moments when we're very dysregulated, like coming back to the nervous system, when we're feeling like everything is too much and we're like spiraling, can we come back to center? Can we have these techniques? Can we use our meditation practice? Can we use breath work? Can we use, tapping or different regulatory practices in order to bring us back into this moment? Because if we are in a state where we're in fight or flight and we think the world is attacking us because we're seeing all these things in the news that is not really affecting us in the moment, but that we're starting to perceive the unknown into the future, might be really dangerous and not feel very good. And then we create this future reality of something that might not even happen and start to worry about that 2 years before anything might happen at all. So it's stealing our joy right now of a life that could actually be pretty good. So what I usually do when there's something really terrifying happening in the world or something, I have like 3 check-in points with myself. The first is, am I going to go there? Am I going to actually go there and do something physical? Am I going to go, if there's been a bombing in Gaza, am I going to go there and do something about it? Chances are likely not. Then the second one, do I know anyone who's actually affected by this, either directly or indirectly? Going to check in with them. Last thing, am I going to donate some money? And once I've checked those 3 off, whether it's yes or no, I don't go in and keep consuming that problem and keep consuming news about it, because I know that that is just draining away resources that I can actually use in my life in order to help my clients, in order to help my family. So many people are so focused on the big picture that are not even actually touching their lives, that they forget to be a resource in their closest surroundings. And that is draining so much energy out of them that they're not able to make an impact where it matters the most, which is for most people in their family, in their friend group, in their community, with their clients. So shifting the focus and like doing something about the things you can do something about, and then also just recognizing that life is incredibly unpredictable. And the more you can learn to be comfortable with not knowing and being in the unknown. This is also really important when it comes to if we want to use the manifestation work, the quantum work, and still trust the process, and that whatever happens, I am going to be the kind of person that whatever happens, I'm going to allow it to make me stronger. Like whenever we are just having cruising away in life, we don't really change that much. Like it's not like we're like really becoming stronger human beings, but when we're getting challenged, that's when we're like, oh, okay, the version of me that I am right now today cannot handle this, but maybe there's a future version of me that can. So I think if we can also view it as an invitation to step in to a greater part of ourselves instead of something that's coming to break you down, then life becomes a very, very different journey when we can view everything as an initiation instead of this thing that is just coming to destroy us, because nothing is. Like everything is here to teach you and to initiate you.
So much of what you say resonates beautifully in alignment with me, and I know not just me, I know many of our viewers and listeners who are watching and listening to us feel the same way. Cecilie, what is your website? What is the best way for people to connect with you?
So my website is ceciliastabell.com. You can probably just link that in the show notes as well. I think the best way is probably on Instagram. I am pretty active on there. And then the podcast, Divinely Driven, is beautiful if they want to dive deeper into these kinds of conversation. I do solos where we dive into things like we've been diving into today. I also have beautiful other guests on where we dive into these topics together.
Wow, this is just amazing. I'm going to go do some sound healing on my voice and my throat right now, but thank you for putting up with me, and thank you so much. It took a little bit of effort, but it was worth it to get together today, because what you had to say today, I really love and appreciate. Thank you for being on World Awakenings.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Carl Gruber, a certified law of attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.